And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Story number 1. It was just a simple dinner, and I can swear that it was nothing serious, but now, my husband is making it out to be something bigger. Guys, I don't understand how a harmless dinner with a guy friend has suddenly got my husband all riled up. How complicated can a marriage be? Why is he trying to make a mountain out of a molehill? My husband has refused to see me, or even talk to me, just because I went to dinner with a guy friend of mine. I don't even know where to start from. My name is Agatha, and I'm a 27-year-old housewife from Florida. I'm married to Tony, a 29-year-old dentist. I know some of you might be surprised at me tagging myself as a housewife. I always get looks of judgment from people whenever I say I'm a housewife who's married to a dentist. The combination is always confusing for them. Well, I'm a housewife, and my husband and I just got married a year ago. We dated for over 3 years before we got married. So even though there's fire on the mountain in my marriage right now, I'll describe it as the best decision I've ever made. I love my husband a lot, and our marriage has been the definition of great. My husband has always been an alpha male, and everything he does shows that. He's a no-nonsense man, and he doesn't take disrespect at all. I've never had a problem with that, and I've supported all of his strict mannerisms. But this latest development has me doubting it all. He's overreacting, and I'm 100% sure I'm not wrong. I don't understand why he's ghosting me all of a sudden just because of a single dinner. It's nothing outrageous, yet he's acting like I broke the Constitution. I get that he's an alpha male and they all have huge egos, but hold on. We all have to draw the line somewhere, right? I'm very upset, and that's why I want to share this on Reddit. I want to tell you everything that happened before asking for your opinions. I decided to ask total strangers for their opinions because I believe that the opinions of strangers are always honest and unfiltered. They never lie because they really don't care about your feelings. Before I met my husband, I've always been an antisocial person with little to no friends. But I had 2 friends in both elementary school and high school, a boy and a girl, and they were actually siblings. We also went to the same college and graduated together. I'm very close to those siblings because they practically stood by me all through school. I'm closer to the guy who is named Kenneth. We were practically bros, LOL. But Kenneth and I lost contact after college because my phone got stolen and we no longer lived in the same town. As for his sister, she got married years ago and moved to another country with her husband. My husband, Tony, is literally upset because Kenneth contacted me recently. If you're wondering how he contacted me, I'll tell you. So my husband and I were having dinner one night before something unexpected happened. It was very unexpected, and I never saw it coming. My phone suddenly rang, and when I picked it up, it was an unknown number, and the caller didn't talk for a very long time. I cut the call since the caller was taking time to pick up. I didn't want to waste time because I was at dinner with my husband, and we have a rule not to use phones during dinner except it was important. I thought it was a call from my sister because I'd been expecting her call, and that was why I picked up. The caller kept calling even after I muted the call several times. My husband finally told me to answer the call, and so I did. I was shocked to discover that it was a call from Felicia, Kenneth's sister. I was very surprised because we had lost contact for years. We even lost contact way before my phone got stolen. The fact that she just called me out of the blue was very abnormal for me, so I asked her if there was any problem. So guys, there was really a problem just like I suspected. She was crying and sobbing over the phone. I was really shocked and I didn't even know what to do. I waited for her to calm down before asking her what the problem was. She told me she had something important to tell me and wanted to see me the next day. I was very shocked to hear that from her. I was shocked because the last time I'd seen Felicia was on her wedding day. She moved to another country with her husband, just like I mentioned earlier. So I didn't get how she planned on meeting me. I asked her how she planned on meeting me, and that was when she dropped the bomb. She told me she was in Florida, and she had been in Florida for over 2 days. Yes, guys, that's the truth. I had a lot of questions to ask her just that night alone, but she promised to answer all my questions when we met the next day. I told my husband everything that had happened, and he told me he'd drive me there the next day. When I got there the next day and introduced Felicia to my husband, she told me she wanted to speak to just me alone. I knew that my husband was offended, but I had no choice then to agree to her request. Tony gave me just 30 minutes to talk to her, lol. I'm not even joking at all. He was angry that she requested privacy when he was my husband. I won't even lie, I understand where he's coming from when it comes to that aspect. But I had to speak to Felicia privately because she looked tired and unwell. Tony waited for me in the car while I spoke to Felicia. I never expected her to say all the things she said to me. To be honest, I was left speechless for a very long time because I found it hard to understand why her marriage ended. Yes, Felicia told me her marriage ended because she cheated on her husband. Apparently, she slept with her husband's coworker, and he found out. He sent her out of the house and made her homeless in a foreign country. Felicia told me that she had no choice but to return back to Florida. What she did was very strong, and I have no excuse for her, but I felt very sorry for her. She looked like she lost a lot of weight. Well, I'm losing a lot of weight now that my husband has decided to ghost me. The worst part is that I didn't even cheat. I had to ask Felicia how she got my number because I was honestly curious. She just told me that she spoke to some of her friends on Facebook who were friends with my sister, and that's how she contacted my sister and asked for my phone number. I didn't get why my sister did not tell me she shared my phone number ahead of time, but I later discovered that sister sent me a message on WhatsApp, but I didn't know. I can't be the only one who is not that social, right? Even though I didn't want to sound like a heartless person, I had to ask Felicia why she needed to see me. She told me that she urgently needed some cash and accommodation. Apparently, Felicia had been living in a hotel for 2 days, and the little money she had left was almost finished. I felt really bad for her, and I had to remember our past as close friends, so I promised to get back to her. I'm a housewife with no particular income. I had to speak to my husband about it first, before I made the move. After the meeting with Felicia, I told my husband everything she told me when we got back home. Let me just put it this way. Tony was not happy about Felicia's request at all. He didn't even like the fact that I agreed to think about her request. He was very angry, and he even refused to help me. He kept saying that she deserved what she got, and that cheating on her husband was very deceitful. I also believed that Felicia deserved what she got, but I could not just fold my hands. She was once one of my closest friends, and I had just 2. We practically grew up together, so I had to help her. My husband and I were literally at loggerheads over that case, and I think that's exactly where our problems began. He didn't like the fact that I was determined to help her at all, and he never missed a chance to make that clear to me. Since Tony refused to assist me financially, I had to take out money from my savings. Even though I'm a housewife, I still have small businesses that I run. I give the money to my sister, and she runs the business. Since Tony made it clear that he didn't want to get involved in the drama with Felicia, I just gave her some money on my own. She was very grateful, and she even started crying. I was very touched, guys, and I honestly felt like crying too. I never imagined that my close friend would end up like that. I said my goodbyes to her even though she made it clear that she'd still be in Florida for a long time. I had to cut all contact with her because I knew that Tony would not like the idea of me being friends with a woman that cheated on her husband. I know my husband very well, so I made sure I made no mistake. Even after cutting all contacts with her, Tony still made sure I never secretly snuck out to see her. I didn't see anything wrong with that because I knew just how strict my husband is. To be honest, I do not want my husband to be in contact with a guy that cheated on his wife, too. That's why I decided to follow his wishes. Even though I used to agree with him, his stance on this particular case actually makes me quite angry. Let me get straight to the point now and tell you all how I got in contact with Kenneth. Few months after Felicia contacted me, I got another unexpected call. It was Kenneth who called me. To be sincere, even when Felicia asked me for money, I never asked her how Kenneth was faring. I didn't see the need to ask her because I assumed that he would have been doing poorly if she asked me for help instead of him. I didn't even ask about Kenneth at all, but on this particular day I was shocked that Kenneth called me. He told me he was very grateful to me and that he owed me a lot. I asked him why, and he told me that Felicia informed him that I'd provided for her when she was broke. I was actually embarrassed that he felt the need to thank me for doing something for my own old friend. I told him not to worry about it and that it was my pleasure. Isn't that what we all say when we're tired of getting too many thanks? Well, I did the same thing. Kenneth didn't seem to want to stop. He told me that there was so much he had to tell me. He told me that a lot had happened over the years, and he would like to tell me all about it. Of course, that was the first time in years that I was talking to him. He was practically my closest friend because he was closer to me than my sister. The fact that I suddenly got a call from him unraveled me. Help me out here, guys. Was I wrong for not immediately saying no? This is an old friend that had been my friend for years. I had no malicious intentions, and that's why I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't even say yes immediately. I told him that I'd think about it first and give him a reply after speaking to my husband. That was all I said to him. I knew that Felicia must have told him I had a husband, but I had to say it again, just in case he doubted her. Talking to Tony about it was not easy at all. In fact, it was actually very far from easy. I knew that Tony would not like that idea at all. He didn't even want me speaking to Felicia. But I had to try first. Telling him was the only option because I knew that I would feel bad if he went to see his old female friend without letting me know first. One experiment I like to do in our marriage is that I like to make sure I do not do what I would not like my husband to do to me. It works most of the time, and that is what helps in our communication skills. But now, I don't think we really have much communication skills because he's been ghosting me for days. When I spoke to him about it, his reaction was exactly how I pictured it. He didn't like the fact that both brother and sister suddenly wanted to see me after years simultaneously. He knew about Kenneth because I used to tell him about Kenneth even before we started dating officially. I used to tell him that Kenneth was a very good friend of mine and that we suddenly lost contact. Tony told me that he didn't want me to go. I didn't agree at all, and that was how we started having a lot of arguments. For me, it was not a big deal because I just wanted to go see a friend. I'd not seen him for years and I just wanted to see how he was faring. The part that baffles me the most is that Kenneth and I never even dated or had a romantic relationship. We were just close friends, and that was all there was to it. I can even swear right now that Kenneth and I never even shared or deep hug, not to even talk of a kiss. That is why I never agreed with Tony's decision not to let me see him. The only reason I even felt the need to ask for permission is because Kenneth is a guy, and I would not want my husband to see the opposite gender without telling me. I was not ready to back down, and Tony was also not ready to back down. Kenneth kept calling me and asking me if I had made up my mind yet. I discovered that he had to go on a business trip and that I was the reason it was still in Florida. I decided to wait one more week and see if Tony would change his mind, but nothing changed. That was when I decided to go see Kenneth without Tony's permission. I didn't want to keep making him stay longer in Florida when he had work to do. I also found it ridiculous that I could not even go see an old childhood friend of mine. I had to make that decision because I had wasted enough time waiting for Tony to come around. When I asked Tony to pick the date and time we should meet, he proposed that we meet at a restaurant at 6 p.m. I didn't like the fact that we were meeting in the evening, and I told him that. But he told me he had work that day, and that was why we had to meet in the evening. I just wanted to get the meeting over with, so I agreed. I left a note for Tony before he came back from work, so he would know where I went. Tony usually came back from work by 7 p.m., so I knew that I might not come back early before he came back from work. That's why I left a note. To be honest, I left up to 4 notes at different places in the house, so he would be able to see at least one. That was just my little way of making sure that he did not worry about where I was. At the end of the day, all my efforts were in vain, because Tony did not even care about all the majors I went through to make sure that he didn't misunderstand things. When I went to the restaurant to see Kenneth, I made it clear to him that I had to get back home early, so we could only talk for a maximum of 1 hour. He had no problem with that, and that was how he started telling me all about everything that had been going on in this life. He told me how Felicia refused to contact him after her husband sent her away because she was scared of getting scolded by him. That finally made a lot of sense because I realized that she was feeling ashamed. Kenneth told me that he was now a real estate agent. I was really happy for him because I'd always known that he wanted to become a real estate agent. We talked about Felicia and how she's trying to get her life back together, and then we talked about all the developments in our life. It was nice to talk to an old friend after a long while. I didn't even finish the food before I told him I had to go. He told me he understood, and then he congratulated me on my marriage. I bade him goodbye before taking a taxi and going back home. So guys, That's literally how all the drama began. I went home and met drama. Literally. It was like there was fire on the mountain. Even before I stepped foot into the house, I could feel the tension from where I stood at the door. I don't even know how I can describe it to you all. My husband made a scene, and it was literally very surprising. Before I could even greet Tony, he started yelling at me continuously. He gave me no room to talk or even explain myself, and that was the most painful part. I didn't even think I had a reason to explain until I fought the anger and aggression he displayed. He started accusing me of cheating on him. I told him that I did not cheat on him and that I just went to dinner with Kenneth. Nothing I said seemed to be making any sense to Tony. He seemed to be more focused on everything he believed I'd done. He asked me why I went to the dinner without informing him first. I told him that it was because he'd refused even after almost 2 weeks of trying to persuade him. Tony told me that I could have still called him and told him where I was headed to. I asked him if he saw the notes I left behind, and he told me that none of those counted. According to him, I'd disrespected him by going to see a guy friend without informing him first. Tony did not even believe that I did not do anything with Kenneth. He was very determined to believe that something fishy had happened. I'm even honestly exhausted after everything that's been going on for the past few days. I can't even begin to state how traumatized I've been. I was trying to explain and tell Tony that nothing out of the ordinary happened. But the more I tried to explain, the more Tony kept talking over me. I am not even making things up or trying to lie. I'm basically saying the truth just as it is. I don't think there's any reason to lie or omit information when I am here trying to get advice on what to do. I'm just saying everything as it is, without any filters. The argument lasted for hours, and it was clear to me that Tony was not ready to see things from my own perspective. He told me that it was disrespectful that I choose to go see an old friend rather than listen to him. He made it seem like I'd chosen Kenneth over him. I used to hear that men had huge egos, but I've only recently experienced it. It seems like Tony's ego is bruised. I think what makes it worse is even the fact that it was dinner. Tony kept asking why we could not meet at a cafe or even in front of a coffee shop. He said he could not accept the fact that his wife left the house at 6 p.m. in the evening to go see a guy friend and have dinner before coming back home. He told me that there was nothing I could say to justify the fact that I had disrespected him. He also made it clear that he did not like the fact that I did not tell him before going that day. Even though I'll still keep saying that I told you my head of time, and he kept rejecting it, so I had no choice, I do understand that he was still angry. But I think it's just outrightly outrageous that he would not speak to me because of that. If he didn't just want to speak to me, it would be understandable. But the fact that it doesn't even want to see me or interact with me is just the highest level of wickedness. We are married. Misunderstandings happen and couples fight. They settle and they move past it. Nothing even happened. Not even a hug was shared. So why is Tony finding it hard to move past this? That night, I actually believed that he would forget all about it the next day after I apologized to him again. I went to sleep in the living room that day because it was obvious that he did not want to see me. I woke up early the next morning and prepared breakfast. I tried talking to him or even starting a little conversation, but all my efforts were in vain. I was very worried because I did not expect Tony to take up that matter like that. The fact that he even knows that it was just an ordinary dinner and nothing happened yet, he still chooses to remain cold and distant is what angers me the most. I want my husband back, and I'm honestly tired of having to beg for him to even look at him. I don't want our marriage to suffer because of something like that. That's why I'm trying my best to put my own ego aside and try to make this work. But I guess I'm married to the most strict alpha male. He never wants to change anything, he says, and I can see that he is determined to stay angry. It's a lot of pressure on me right now, and I don't even know how to feel. I'm living in the same house with my husband, but we are not even interacting like neighbors. I don't know how to even explain the level of hurt I feel. I'm even starting to feel guilty, even though I know that I did nothing wrong. I kept telling him for almost 2 weeks yet. His answer was always no. I could not pass by a lifetime opportunity to see my childhood friend. For what might have been the last time, I'm not saying that I want to see my ex-boyfriend. I'm saying that I want to see my old childhood friend. There's a difference between those two things, and the meaning is completely different. I decided to speak to my sister because she is literally the closest person to me. She's the one person that understands me even before I open my mouth to sleep. When I spoke to her, she suggested that she spoke to him on my behalf. She came over to the house one evening for dinner, and that was the first dinner in days when Tony agreed to stay at the dining table with me. My sister asked him why he was not talking to me, and Tony was very reluctant to speak. He said that he did not want to talk about it, but my sister was persistent. That's when Tony finally said that he did not like the idea of me meeting up with two siblings simultaneously. He also said that he did not like the fact that Felicia had cheated on her husband, and I decided to help her, even after he refused. Apparently, he did not like the idea of me meeting up with the brother of a girl who had cheated on her husband with his co-worker. According to him, Felicia and her brother were a bad influence, and the fact that the both of them suddenly wanted to start up a friendship did not sit well with him. I tried to make him understand that I was nothing like Felicia, and that I would never even think of cheating on him. He said he found it hard to believe that when I went ahead to go see Kenneth without telling him. We were literally back to square one, and the back and forth began again. He told my sister that he needed time to think and that he does not want to talk to me right away. After the dinner, my sister advised me to just give him time and not try to rush him. I agreed before seeing her off. To be honest, guys, even though I agreed, I don't want to follow that advice at all. I have read about many of such situations online, and this is usually how couples end up separating. A small issue can turn into a full-blown fight if it is not taken care of at the right time. One thing about marriages is that there is nothing like a break or time to think. Once the couple starts spending time away from each other and leaving problems unsolved, larger issues begin to arise and the couple is faced with bigger problems. I don't want that to be the situation in my marriage, and that is why I am here on Reddit today. I want to find a way to make peace with my husband without pushing him too much. I have realized that he has a big ego and does not like the idea of his wife choosing to go to have dinner with another man rather than listening to him. Even though I still think he's being too cruel, I don't want to disregard his feelings just because it does not resonate with what I believe. He has a right to think whatever he wants to think, and I have the responsibility of clearing up what I started. My sister is also trying to make me understand that I shouldn't have left that evening without giving him a call first. After writing this out and reading it over and over again, I also believe that I could have done things differently. I don't have the same opinions I had when I first started this, but I still have my opinions. Please help me, Reddit. I need your help because my marriage is literally falling before my eyes. I cannot just stand by and watch everything drown because of a stupid misunderstanding. It's almost like I am now in Felicia's position, just that I haven't been kicked out yet. Imagine being in the position of someone that ran to you for help. Well, it is not a great position to be, and I hope that things don't get that bad. Hopefully it won't, because I don't want to suffer for something I didn't do. It's almost like I'm regretting being a good Samaritan. I should have just ignored everything, right? But no. At the end of the day, I owe some form of respect and loyalty to the friends I once had. I'll choose my husband in marriage over those friends in a heartbeat. So I hope it doesn't get to that. Please don't leave me hanging, Reddit. I'm literally counting on you all to come up with a solution for me. I'm going to appreciate each and every comment I get, and don't be hesitant to judge me. I knew exactly what I was getting into before putting this post up here. My husband will soon be back from work, and even though he does not speak to me now, I don't want him to see me typing on the computer with so much focus. It will be very embarrassing for him to find out what I'm doing. Till the next update, guys. Update. It's the troubled wife again. LOL. This time I think that some of my troubles, or even most of my troubles, have been lifted off my shoulders. I cannot help but thank you all for it. It's the woman who refused to take permission, lol. The comments even had me crying and laughing at the same time. I have so many nicknames and they are so long. Not even the most controversial Reddit stories I've read have this many funny comments. It's a bittersweet feeling, actually, and I think sharing my problems with strangers did not happen to be as bad as I thought it would be. It was bad, just not as horrible I imagined it would be. Most of the comments advised me not to let two old friends get in the middle of my relationship with my husband. I even got many people telling me to call Kenneth and have him apologize to my husband. To be honest, that was a little bit outrageous for me. I never thought of doing that because I knew that it would lead to an awkward scenario. I didn't want Kenny to find out I have issues with my husband, and I didn't want to give my husband the impression that I was still in contact with Kenneth. Some things are to be left private, and there are just some boundaries that should never be crossed. Look at me talking so seriously, like I did not end up doing exactly what I'm condemning. I know it sounds stupid, but hey, you all suggested it, so I guess we are in this boat together. I saw most people saying that it was unfair for me to be the one getting punished for only trying to help and honor my own old friends. Many people also said that they saw the side my husband was coming from and that it was not unusual for him to feel disrespected. When I showed the comments to my sister, she also agreed that it was not okay for me to be alone in this issue when Felicia and Kenneth were out there living their life. Felicia is also a part of this issue because my husband cannot just stand the fact that she cheated on her husband. Since it was the only option I had to call Kenneth and set up a meeting with him and my husband. Please get me wrong. The reason I set up the meeting was not so Kenneth would beg my husband on my behalf. I only set up the meeting so Kenneth would apologize to my husband for setting up a meeting at 6 p.m. I realized that if I was in my husband's shoes, I would also want an apology from him and the woman that set up the time. The comments really made me calm down and say things from a different light. I called Kenneth and asked them to come to Florida immediately. He told me his schedule was tied and he had work. But when I told him what it was about, he did not refuse, because he agreed that he owed me a favor for what I'd done for Felicia. Even though it was not something I would have ever thought of doing on a normal day because it was just too awkward and outrageous, I had to do it because I was out of options. If you're wondering how the meeting went, it was not as messy as I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely awkward and unusual. It was even more uncomfortable than I thought to see my husband and Kenneth in the same room. I'm just trying to say that things could have gone south really fast, but it didn't. Kenneth did not hesitate to ask for my husband's apology and explain to him that he had to work the whole day, and that was why I decided to set up the meeting that late. He also said that he had to catch up on a flight early the next morning and knew that there would be no opportunity for us to meet again, so he had no choice. My husband accepted his apology, and that was it. He didn't even bother to touch his food or try to make conversation with Kenneth. When I tried speaking to my husband later that evening, we had a long conversation, and he made me understand that the only reason he got angry was because I had gone in the evening, and I didn't even think of calling him on the phone. He said that made him feel disrespected, but he had to let it go because of how dedicated I had been to settling our issues. He also respected the majors I'd gone through just to make sure that I respected this opinion. He said he did not like the fact that I set up a meeting with Kenneth and that it was awkward, but he liked the fact that I had gone through such extreme measures. According to Tony, he wanted to teach me a lesson and make me understand that in a marriage, it was right to respect your partner's opinion. I told him that I had learnt my lesson and would not be doing that again. I got to understand that if I was in my husband's shoes, and he wanted to see an old female friend that I did not really resonate with, it would also make me upset to find out he still went to see the same person at 6 p.m. in the evening, even after I refused. I learnt my lesson from how cold and distant my husband had been towards me. I'm definitely going to start respecting certain boundaries, because no friendship is worth my marriage with my husband. At the end of the day, friends grow apart and then move on with their own lives. Felicia, for example, had gotten married years ago and moved to another country with her husband. She even got married before me, and we lost all contact. If she didn't cheat on her husband and was left stranded, she would have never even tried to contact me. That is not worth running my marriage for. I do not regret helping her, but I do regret how I went to dinner with Kenneth without getting my husband's full permission. Everything is over now, and I am wiser and stronger. I'm just very grateful that my marriage did not suffer a huge loss because of something so trivial. Big thanks to all the readers out there. You all don't know how much help you were to me. Peace and bye.